We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Taste with you well, if you've gone sour, you want the world plus everything, but it won't work an hour. And now your questions are guilt creeping, and you go and buy her flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy. I won't allow it. I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out, so shut your mouth.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters, the professionals on this international weekend, and it's a big welcome to Stu and to Mitch, who is with us. There he is, he's back. Yeah, plenty to talk about in the next 90 minutes. As always, same format, get your questions in. The lads and I will discuss them, talk about them, and give our opinions on them. It's what we do on here. John Askew, as always, gets in nice and early. He says, afternoon all, do you think planning will already be underway for the January window? I know it's a tricky one, but it might be the key to our 2-4 hopes. I'm not sure what that means.
That'll be
top four, yeah, top four, not 2-4. With Burns, Shaw, and Longie's contract up in the summer, how important do you think that they get extensions, and who will make the decisions? That's a good question. And lads, is this the season at the most competitive in Premier League history? There's 6, us and Villa, and then you've got Brighton and West Ham, not to mention Palace, who finished last season well. What do you think? I hope the last window doesn't come back to haunt us. Plenty to get our teeth into there, Mitch, on this international weekend. And yeah, I mean, the Mitchell press release really is still filtering through. Lots of people have got lots of opinions and lots of different views on it. We discussed it on Friday. We'll hear what Stu's got to say in a bit. I do want to read out this from Tom, who does Geordie's here. Geordie's there with us on Wednesday night. Really, really good this. He said, what Mitchell should have said. The club wants to build on the work that was done to build on our goals to be the best by adding additional scouting resources, utilising data analysis for maximum effect, and to cast our net further afield to bring in talent that will progress the club now and into the future. PSR is an ongoing concern, and we'll need to buy and sell smart to ensure the growth of the club continuing in a sustainable manner. And this window, the strategy was to bring in players that will immediately improve the starting 11. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but it wasn't for the lack of effort. But this will allow us the ability to refocus our funds for the upcoming windows. And as Tom puts at the end, there you go, the message without drama. Very well, a point well made that, Tom, I think. But yeah, it's John's question that we're talking about. I mean, there will be planning already for January. There's no doubt about it. The club isn't run by Mike Ashley anymore. It's run by professionals who do plan in advance.
You would hope they're planning for January already. And I think that's also part of demonstrating to everybody, look, we can make this work. I think that's really important. It's still rumbling on. There's still different opinions being offered in different outlets today, even. There you go, the Sunday report, and Mitchell could be leaving after 2 months. That's one of the most extreme takeaways you could take from the whole situation. And of course, that's going to sell papers. That's going to make people click on links and things like that. So let's, bear that in mind whenever you see something sensational like that. This is the problem with it being behind closed doors and with there being off the record comments. And that's why I said what I said on Friday night. You know, I'd read 4 different opinions on it, and that came across clearly in the strap when you were putting people's comments up underneath. That the people's opinions were being shaped by the opinions of whatever they'd read. And that's frustrating too. So yeah, I think it's an important point about planning for which players do we wish to extend contracts on and which ones do we not. And if we elect not to, why? We've got to be careful with that though, because we've been burdened with players who had contracts extended under Ashley's time, really for them to retain value. And we're slowly waiting for the contracts to tick down just to get rid of the buggers. So it's a balance, really, isn't it? It's making a decision on a player ahead of time before you say, you know what, have we had the best out of this player? Is the better out there? Do we have better in the ranks already? And where do we go with this? And that's also a part of planning for further windows. And I think that's very important.
Stu, obviously Mitchell's interview came out. I think, you know, the consensus of opinion on the show on Friday was a measured one. I think we gave a measured opinion about it. We certainly didn't get a barrage of criticism. But we, you know, I think we all just took out of it what we wanted to take out of it, and we probably just gave all different opinions on here, and people did in the chat. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting. It was interesting to hear from him. This stuff that's come out over the course of the last 48 hours. Mitch quite rightly says headlines are sensationalized, but when you read it, I guess it's just the interpretation of what he said, you know, and people saying there's a power struggle behind the scenes, etc. I mean, you know, is there or isn't there? We don't know, but at the moment we're still just recovering from what we all felt was a bit of a disappointing window.
The situation is the transfer window just closed last week. Now it's an international week, and it's a slow week for newspapers. So what do they do to drum up some trade? I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll mention a potential scandal at Newcastle. That'll get the dogs barking. That'll get people clicking. That'll keep me in the job. That's all it is. My interpretation of Mitchell's interview, he's hardly going to say, sorry guys, I failed my first audition, but I will try harder next time. So quite clearly what he said was, the word that you used there, Steve, was measured. He did come in halfway through a window, just after the escapades of the last day of the PSR window at the end of June. So he's in a position where if they're talking about plans being laid, hopefully the plans weren't laid on the 1st of July. The plans have been laid since last summer, and they knew who they wanted. They had a list of targets. They worked through that. They had a blank January because of the PSR issues. So they're now in a position where we've got money to spend, and it's quite clear we had money to spend. I don't think anyone can doubt it. And in a way, I'm happy they didn't spend it for the sake of spending's sake, because that's really is a road to nowhere. And was it Chris Rea that sang that? And he's from Middlesbrough. So we need to be who we are and where we're from. So with what he's saying is, he sees room for improvement, but what happens is it's like a pack of vultures. The press will pick on each word. They don't look at the whole interview is a one. They'll look at a certain phrase and rip it apart just to sensationalize it, because the transfer window's closed and it's international week. It's slow news week. So let's make something, or let's twist the words or paraphrase them into a position where it looks like he's throwing people under the bus. I think he did neither. I think there's been initially teething issues with him and Eddie Howe. It seems to me that that's been resolved because they're both still in the job and both seem happy for it. The fact that the chairman's come over, for me, it's the correct thing to do, is to say, look, I'm still with you. What's happened here? I want answers. I'll get answers. and then he'll make a decision. Now, Eddie Howe hasn't messed up. His remit is to get the best out of the players he's got at his disposal. And as long as he does that, I feel that he'll have the backing from Saudi Arabia. Now, whether the same can be said for the CEO, the CCO, and the sporting director, that's up to how they perform over the next few months, I would imagine, because they won't get a year to fix the wrongs. And the blind man can see that we should have strengthened this window. It was a very important window, as each window is, but this one, because we were in Europe, because of the players that we've got, the crown jewels, as we call them, the Brunos, the Botmans, the Tenalis, the Isaacs, the Gordons, you can't blame them for looking elsewhere at the end of this season if we don't achieve European or Europa League as a minimum, not Conference, Europa League as a minimum. And I don't think many fans will blame them for saying to their agent, get me out of here now. I've given all I can. But I still think they've got a squad that can get top four. And it's a shame that it wasn't added to. But we can't change what's happened. We're going to change what will happen. So they can have preparations for January, but everyone knows we've got money to spend now. So they talk about the Newcastle tax. It's going to be real in January when the prices are higher anyway. So do they go back for Gay and say, we'll offer you 40 million instead of 65 to get him to 50 million? I don't know. But what's going to be determining what we do in January will be injuries between now and January. And that's the thing. I even watched England yesterday. And as well as Anthony Gordon played, I was just praying every time he got the ball, he wasn't fouled. He didn't twist when he was turning, and he didn't lack something. And this is what we're going to be like every international break. If they injure themselves playing for Newcastle, it's like acceptable, isn't it? But when they do it for the national team, it becomes a problem. So although obviously individually the players selfishly will want to enhance their career and play for the national team, we supporters of Newcastle United really would hope that they didn't. But it's always going to happen, that's us just wanting to be living in a utopian world, which we don't. So if we're in a position regarding Mitchell's statement, what he was saying is he came in, the targets were already there. My interpretation is he'd spoken to Eddie Howe and he understood why Eddie Howe wanted Mark Gay, and then his job was there to assist. He said it was to assist, not to complete. So he might have bought himself some time. If he threw anyone under the bus, it wasn't Eddie Howe. It would have been the man above him, the man who appointed him, which is something you really shouldn't do, is get a job for someone and then start causing trouble for them. Because he's never going to be the CEO. He's always going to be the sporting director. But the timing wasn't great when he came in, so that is excusable. And I'm saying this not defending Paul Mitchell, because I still think he was more than capable of getting someone in. And if all the rumours, which appear to be true, is on the last day they threw in a bid for Elanga at Nottingham Forest, that to me should have been sorted out well before the last day of the window and give us a time to negotiate and time to get him in. Because with the greatest respect to Nottingham Forest, I don't think many Nottingham Forest players would say no to signing for Newcastle. They've got Chris Wood in the change room. What do you reckon, Chris? I've been asked to go to Newcastle. He would tell them to jump at the chance, I'm sure of it. And we didn't really give much time for that. So it was haphazard at the end. It wasn't professional. And we're all entitled to mistakes. And hopefully they learn from it. And now what we're doing is riding luck on the fact that we don't get the injury list we got last year. Because if we do, and we had added in the summer, we had a squad capable of handling it better. But as it stands at the moment, I think we've only got 4 fit midfielders. And that can cause issues if Bruno pings a hamstring and they're playing for Brazil, or Tonali does his Achilles. Then we're back to 3 midfielders picking themselves. And that's not a position any team should be in, never mind one that's challenging or hoping to challenge for European qualification at the higher end of the table. So Mitchell, for me, was doing his bit of a Shaggy impression. It wasn't me. But he is culpable. He is involved. And although he's not entirely to blame, he is partially to blame. That's my interpretation of his interview anyway.
Okay, lots of comments as always coming in and lots of questions. Thanks to Maverick Soul for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you very much for that. We will come to the international games. It is international weekend. We will have a chat a little bit about that at the moment. Just want to finish off really on this. Barry is obviously talking about, you know, the owners' expectations. He said, what do you think the expectations will be from the owners this season? Will their expected position have changed due to the lack of investment, or will they expect Europe in a potential cup final? Mitch?
I genuinely don't know. But I suspect there was a message relayed when the chairman was over for the Spurs game. But what that message is, I'm not sure.
I think that, you know, again, it's only our opinion, but I think things haven't changed a great deal. We've still got the same squad. We've kept a hold of Isaac, Gordon, Bruno at all. You know, we haven't let any of the big guns go. And we have brought in, you know, a couple of players, you know, to improve the squad. We've made the Lewis Hall deal permanent. You know, we brought in like Kelly, who bolsters the back four once Botman comes back in December. You know, we're edge towards full strength. Callum Wilson hopefully will be fit by the weekend as well. You know, so Newcastle's squad it hasn't been reduced, and you know, at the moment Trippier's still there. We've got Trippier on the bench at the moment, so I would say that the expectations without Europe are still very high, Stu. You know, I still think that, you know, our owners will be expecting a return to Europe, certainly in a higher, you know, Champions League would be the aim, I'm sure, but I'm still sure they'll want to go as far as they can in the cup competitions. I
think they expected to. Last season, you could say there was excuses or reasons for where we finished, but this season it would have been earmarked minimum would have been European qualification, and they've been given money to spend. It's quite clear the bid for different players in two positions, which shows they had an extra minimum 120 to spend on top of what they'd already spent. So they're doing their bit by saying the money's available, and they've put the trust in. And there's something I've referenced plenty of times previously. How the Saudis will do business, they'll hire who they believe is the best in class, and they'll give them enough opportunity, enough time, and enough rope to hang themselves. And if they don't deliver, then they'll replace them. They're not scared to do that. So going forward, I still think they expect European qualification. But as I said in my opening statement, in a perverse way, it's actually worked in the favour of Eddie Howe, because everyone else has improved their squad, improved their starting 11, and we haven't. So we're now relying on the new signing Tonali, the new signing Bonds, the new signing Botman when he comes back, etc., etc. You know, but what happens if and when? Because it will happen. Pivotal players will get injured, and this is the thing that we haven't padded the squad out enough of quality. We can get as much quantity as we want, but that'll put us in the position we are now when we can't shake off people. So to answer your question, I still think minimum requirement from above would be European qualification. Now, if we don't qualify for Europe and the players are still putting the effort in and they fell short through the injuries or the fact that there just wasn't enough quality there, that won't fall on Eddie Howe. If you remember where we were when he took the job to what he's achieved, I think he's got enough credit in the bank. Unless Newcastle go on a dismal run and it looks like the players have give up and they're not playing for him, I think he's got the job as long as he wanted. His position, because of all this, has been strengthened. So I think Paul Mitchell has realised he'd rather have Eddie Howe as an ally than listening to, say, Darren Eales, who says, I've got rid of those two. So here with me, son, yeah, you're on a winner. I think Paul Mitchell has read the room a bit differently to how it was when he first went in and thought, you know what it is, I'm just going to do my job. And my job is to support the manager, is to bring in the type of players he's wanting and to make this football club better. I don't think he wants to play the politics. I think he wants to do his job because it's his reputation, more importantly. And that's why he won't walk. You know, he won't walk after one failed window when he had a partial say in it, not a full say in it. Had he been there from when Ashworth left in February, then yes, he's culpable, he's wholly to blame, but he wasn't. He was brought in through halfway through a window where targets were already identified. So I don't know how much he got involved with the gay. I don't know how much, but we can all be wise after the event, and we can all make mistakes. But at the same time, if his mistake was trying to get the player that the manager really wanted, then I can see why he hung out a bit longer, and they got played. And it's going to happen occasionally. We're not going to sign everyone that we want to sign. No club does. But we're not at the top of the tree yet, but we will get there. But for me, it seems like that we've just been put on pause, and that's the shameful thing, or the sinful thing, or the sad thing, that this summer's been wasted. And even if we do really well from now till January, I still feel it was wasted because we could have done better. And now this is where we show ourselves as Newcastle fans how we unite together and get behind the team, and the support's been amazing. Sold out for Wolves away. I'm sure Wimbledon away is going to get sold out very quickly. Same with Everton away. Forest in the cup that no one likes, 3,000 sold out, and I'm quite sure they could have took 6,000. The support are on side, and this, although it was disappointing because we've all got our own aspirations of wanting to be better, you have to look at the window. By all accounts, we spent the best part of 60 million, and that classes as a bad window. It's probably because of where the money went rather than where it didn't go. But we've all supported Newcastle long enough where there's been a zero spent in the summer, and there's been zero or one addition, and then that's it, make do with what you've got. Thankfully, because of the injuries, we do have a stronger squad going into the season. The key is retaining fitness, and that's where James Bunce will come to the fore. And I think that's where we'll see a different approach rather than this high intensity that we've done, which obviously if you're going at 100 miles an hour constantly, there's more chance of something breaking. Where I think now they'll be doing the pressing intermittently, where it'll be like a 5 or 10 minute spell, and it'll have to come from the front. When Isak goes, others have to be ready to go. And it might impact our performances better, because they seem to have shored up the back line with a makeshift back line. Because if you think about it, had we got Gay, which we didn't, so Botman would be in everyone's starting 11. And then we've got a debate on who's left back. We've still got a debate on who's right back, and we've still got a debate who would part of Botman. So we've got 7 or 8 players jostling for 4 positions, and that's not a bad, because they're all decent. It's not like we're hoping Paul Dummett has one of his Stoneman games he has occasionally. We're not playing Matt Ritchie at left back because we have to. You know, we've actually got quality in each position. It's just getting the right team, the right blend, the right mix. And sometimes your best players don't make your best team. And that's where Eddie Howe has to prove with what he's got. There's no point in him whinging any press conference anymore. His only focus now has to be getting the best results with the players he's got. So will Saudi expect anything less than European qualification? No. I don't think that would be acceptable.
Of course, the big problem we've got now, Mitch, is that ultimately at the press conference on Friday for the Wolves game, Eddie's going to be bombarded now with questions about Paul Mitchell's interview, isn't he? I mean, if you're fully aware, he'd be practicing between now and then, I guess, on his answers to any kind of questions he'd be getting. But it's going to be a nightmare for him. He's just got to get through this press conference and then let it all settle down, I guess.
Very probably, but this is where the club now have to help him. He's got Lee Marshall up there with him. I think Lee needs to be a bit more firm with some of the individuals in the press corps. Stop Louise Taylor asking whatever bizarre questions she wants to go down, and insensitive questions she wants to go down with Tonali, because she thinks she's obviously got something.
Mitch, one flew to Italy like 16 times. He had to, of course. That was part of the punishment.
I think she thinks he's not done all of his sessions.
Yeah, that's what she was getting at, wasn't it? That
seems to be reading between the lines.
Can he not do 2 in 1 visit, like?
Oh, mate, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Insensitive is an understatement. But the club need to help Eddie. You know, and so that's where I'm quite sure they'll be prepping him. I'm quite sure he'll have a few stock straight back answers. and get this one out of the way, and then hopefully let everything settle down and move on more like normal.
Yeah, Stu, I mean, the press conferences, for Eddie for the first couple of weeks anyway, they've been a bit of a nightmare for him, because he is literally having to field stupid questions. It's almost as bad as the early days of his appointment when he was being asked questions about the ownership, which he just didn't want to answer. And he's usually very good at that. He just seems to be getting a little bit miffed, a little bit irate at the moment at the press conferences, and he's going to have to be ready for it again this weekend.
I was going to say that, Steve, exactly what you've just said there. It's not as if it's just been thrown at him since he's walked through the door. He's been questioned on things that he shouldn't be questioned on, or he shouldn't be asked, or he shouldn't be given answers to, or it's outside of his remit, or he can't give an answer because it's someone else to answer, and you can't answer on someone else's behalf, because if you get it wrong, then there's a problem, especially if it's your superior. So he's the master of deflecting questions. And whether it's regarding the player's fitness, whether it's regarding formations, whether it's regarding the human rights issues, whether it's regarding transfers, he knows what he's tested and proven now. He knows what he's doing. But the last couple of weeks, before the window closed, you could sense a frustration in him. But I don't think that was frustration as in, I'm sick of these questions, because he knows what to get. And for me, it's water of a duck's back to him. The frustration would have been, he's sitting in a position knowing the ideology of the owners, and knowing that he's not getting the support player-wise at his disposal to provide that. So that's going to be frustrating. You've got to give a master craftsman his tools. And I know you can say every bad trader blades his tools or whatever, but he's proven that he can do it. He's proven that his commitment to Newcastle, he's still the first in, he's still the last out, and the players hang on every word he says. The respect is there, and I think had they not had the respect from him, had they not had the love for him, had they not had the camaraderie that he's built, not just him, but he's the head of the coaching staff, that they've built together, I think we could have seen one or two major players exit this summer. But out of loyalty, out of respect, and out of belief in what he's trying to achieve, everyone seemed happy to stay. No one rocked the boat. None of the players rocked the boat of the starting 11. None of our so-called superstars said they wanted to leave. What was said was they were meant to leave, or the club wanted them to leave, or the club may have let that person leave. That's out of his hands. What is in his hands, as I've mentioned at the start there, is to get the best out of the players at his disposal. And I fully expect him to do that. And to answer the question about the Christmas tree, it should have been up last week. But I've been doing a lot of travelling yesterday. Well, from Friday to yesterday, I was on 3 different flights, and it took us 21 hours to get back. So yesterday was a rest day. Well, yesterday afternoon was a rest day. Today I've been at work. The missus have been doing the washing and whatever else she's meant to do when I'm at work. And I'm sure the tree will be up tomorrow. So it'll be ready for Wednesday for Jolie's here. Jolie's there.
There we go. Christmas tree update. Excellent. What did you...
On the 1st of September.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant. Let's talk a little bit about the internationals. Tonali, of course, everyone's talking about that assist, first of all, Mitch. Don't know whether you've had time to see it with your weekend.
Yeah, it was
a sublime pass, wasn't it?
It was all over me Twitter timeline. I couldn't move for it. And I've got to say, what a thing of beauty. That entire goal is a thing of beauty. And to see him just nonchalantly backheel flick it the way he did up for the left back to volley it in. What a fantastic dilemma this leaves Eddie with going into the next game. I got Willock's fit as well, so he's got a real midfield choice. And I don't think on the showing that we've had, there's no reason to consider dropping Tonali into the starting lineup. And what a brilliant piece of football that whole goal was. The backheel assist was a sublime thing, but the whole goal's a thing of beauty. So bodes well, doesn't it? Really, it makes me excited to get him into our team, to think what a difference maker he could be, and how much we're obviously missed him last season.
90 minutes did he play, Stu, as well? I mean, that's some good for somebody who's just come straight back into the team. Shows you how much the Italians value him.
Well, he's not highly rated. He's shown that he's a top quality player. That's why we spent 52 million on him. And it was good, although I mentioned previously that I'm worrying about players getting injured when they're playing. With someone like Tonali, you want to get as many minutes in his legs as possible. I'm more thinking of Bruno, who's probably played about 70 games in the last 12 months. He only played 60 minutes last night, but he's still got like a 9-hour flight to come back after playing a game on Wednesday night. So, but that's probably why they made him captain. He doesn't seem to complain. He wants to come back and he wants to be playing. As soon as he's available, he wants to play. And when he's not, you can see him sulking. You can see him throwing his toys at the pram because he's not fit. And that sort of attitude is, to me, it epitomises what Eddie Howe has built. So Tonali's assist was fantastic, and I look forward to him doing it many times over the coming years for Newcastle, and I'm sure he will. And it's great that he's got the minutes into his legs. And to be fair, same as Gordon, I know I didn't want Gordon to get fouled and everything else, but he's mentally had a really tough summer. And sometimes you need to let them do what they enjoy doing best, and that's playing football, and that's expressing themselves. And it couldn't have worked out better for him to have Lee Carsley as the manager, because he showed so much faith and belief in him in under 21s last summer that, you know, he had him playing initially on the wing, but then as a false 9, and he got player of the tournament. So to have him there and put him in his first team, that will give his confidence a huge lift. And again, he spoke very well at the press conference, and very honestly, sometimes too honest. And I think that's what held him back in the summer. He was too honest with his answers. But you can't knock someone for being honest, or you shouldn't knock someone for being honest. So with Tonali and Gordon, get the minutes in the legs, we will benefit from it. The other ones wrap them up in cotton wool. And to answer the point that Spenny said, he's going to give us a $5. I think there'll be a cool day in hell before Spenny parts with any money for anyone else but himself. But the reason I'm wearing the Scotland top is for, well, 2 reasons. Well, 3 now, just to get a $5 off Spenny. The first one is because Scotland are playing tonight. The second one being that it's to show everyone who watches this channel supports Newcastle United. It could be worse. You could support this team as well. That could be your national team, where you've got no hope, you've got no future, you've got nothing but trouncing expected tonight. So what we're looking at now is where sometimes we have to take a reality check and think, believe it or not, we're in a good position. Not as good as we should be, but as a club, we're in a fantastic position. And I love quoting Murdads, we're building a skyscraper. The foundations are firmly set. I just think we've got to maybe the 10th floor of a 50-floor skyscraper, and the lifts aren't working this summer, but they'll fix them. And they'll go through the gears pretty quickly after that.
Ian says, Stu, I'm Northern Ireland, mate, so I'm not far behind you.
Behind? He is. I'm glad he said behind.
You're only have
some credibility in Scotland, you know.
Yeah, well, you're above San Marino. That's the main thing. Who have won more games. Have won more games this season than Everton, which is great.
That's San Marino. That's never scored against Scotland. That's San Marino.
That's San Marino, yes. Who would have scored against England? Yes, I know. Chris, I'll come to that, mate. I will do that. And Mark E says, Stu, I feel your pain. I am Welsh.
That's not my pain you're feeling because you're Welsh, mate. I understand what you're saying.
Let's talk England. A few comments in the chat about that. Mark says, I was very impressed with Gahey last night. You can see why Eddie Howe wants him. Technically very good, very efficient passing through the lines. He says, do you think we'll be back in for him in January? We'll tackle that question, Mitch, as well as just reading out a couple of other comments. Gordon played the best game of his season last night, says Craig. Was there another one about England, or was that it? Yeah, that was it, I think. Lots of other questions, but not about England. Yeah, so I mean, England's performance last night, you know, as expected, you know, they won. And yeah, there was some good performances. Gordon probably did play one of his better games.
Yep, he was a nuisance from the first minute. Playing against a farmer of a right wing back as well, who dished out a couple of rather agricultural challenges, if you ask me. I was a little worried a couple of times. But he was a nuisance from the get-go. Should have probably had a goal himself. I think probably reflects that he's still just a little bit off his very, very best. But his movement and his involvement was very, very good. Again, bodes well for us. We get the benefit of somebody with a bit more confidence and a few more minutes in his legs, and looking a lot happier and feeling a lot happier. So I think it's a situation where an international trip will do us some good for once. As far as the England performance goes, I think we gave Ireland a couple of chances early on. Like, Ireland were only ever going to be difficult if they got a lead early on and had something to hang on to. The minute they were playing catch up, it was a different game altogether. However, a couple of those early chances were from corners and from headers, and people talking about how good Gay he was. He didn't look good at those. However, it looked like England were doing zonal marking, and I can't stand zonal marking in football. I don't think it generally works. So whether that was more a system thing than an individual player thing, it remains to be seen. But other than that, he did look decent in terms of distribution, playing through the lanes, etc. He's passing. You can see why Eddie's interested in him, but it's still not at 70 million for me. If we pay anything near that, I want nothing short of prime Baresi. And if he's not, it's a poor signing for me. But I think, he looked generally comfortable on the ball and in possession like most of the England players did. I thought Grealish looked like he had his shackles taken off a little bit, given that kind of more free role. Although probably out of playing that same position for his club, kept drifting to the left and doubling up with Gordon, which sometimes didn't actually help. But there was some interesting tactical things, I think Carsley started playing with in the second half as well. So you can see he's having almost trying on the job a few different things for other games potentially. So I think it's one of those. As England, you take the result, but I think there's other things to take from it. And we know a little bit more about some of those players. I think that comment about Mainu was quite right as well. I did think he looked half a yard off the pace. Caught in possession a couple of times. I think playing Colwell at left back, was that an experiment, or is that something he wants to do a long time? It exposes a weakness at left back for England for me. But generally, at the end of the day, like I've said already a couple of times this season, when push comes to shove, we'll look at the result, and that's all anybody will ever look at. 2-0 away win for England, and you always take that.
Yeah. Did you say you watched the England game, Stu?
I did, yes.
Yeah. What did you make of them?
I thought they did a job that they should be doing. They are player for player streets ahead of the Republic of Ireland. The fact that Scotland are ranked above the Republic of Ireland says it all. So for me, they dominated the game. They never looked like losing the game. It was routine victory for them. And could they have scored more? Yes. Should they have scored more? Yes. But ultimately, again, we're at the hard start of a season after a long, hard season last year, the Euros, etc. But when I say I was impressed with England versus what Italy did in France, it's weird you compare it. England will always beat the teams ranked lower than them. But England's yardstick is when they play against the top teams, and the teams they've got a 50-50 chance, or a 60-40 or a 40-60 chance of winning against. And that's been the downfall. And I'm not all in for this golden generation, because every time England go to a tournament, it's a golden generation they've got. What they've got is a good squad, an excellent squad of young players with untapped potential. And if everyone who plays to the best of their ability in that given game, there's not a team in the world that would beat England. Please don't crop that and send it to my family, because I'll be ostracised and kicked out. But it's true. Man for man, And I try to keep football simple. Yes, you've got to score more goals than the opposition, but name one Republic of Ireland player that would get anywhere near the England team. It's the same with Scotland versus England. There isn't. So England did a job, but they did it well, and they seem to do it with a freshness. They seem to do it with a bit more, I wouldn't say aplomb, but as if the shackles were off and they were given a bit more freedom to go and express themselves. And that should only bode well for the future. And should they be winning tournaments? It's very easy to say, but you've probably got, especially at the World Cup, anywhere between 6 and 10 teams that have got a squad capable of winning a tournament. And you need the luck. Now, where as an England fan, you've had the luck in the past with the draws to qualify, with the draws once you've qualified, with other teams not winning, so it's made your routes to the back end of the tournaments even better or even easier. It then comes down to the crunch games, and that's the mentality that you've got to get fixed. And I think someone like Gordon, he showed enough mental strength in the last year, especially in interviews he's done, that he's mentally strong. And I think it's going to take a brave manager to get rid of Harry Kane, but I think his best days are gone. He's still a fantastic goal scorer and he'll do a job for many teams, but I think this England team would be better without him, where you've got more pace and energy and vision, because he wants to get involved and he wants to keep dropping back. So when these players, the white players, are putting the crosses in, he's not there because the midfielders are bypassing him, getting into the box where he should be. So you could even look at playing a false nine, play someone like Foden as a false nine. That puts Bellingham and Foden in the same team. You've got Saka on one wing, you could have Palmer in there, you could have Gordon in there. You've got an abundance of talent that any one of those players, teams like Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland would give the right hand for. And it's just getting it together. And I think because Carsley wasn't a household footballing name, he gets overlooked and he doesn't get decent support. And it's been shameful, some of the press he's received, because he never sang the national anthem. You have to understand that he played his career for the Republic of Ireland. And whether he sees himself as English, Irish, Moldovan or whatever, he's in that position because he'll get the best out of the squad. And I think if he'd been manager for England at the Euros, I honestly think England would have won it. If you look at what he's done with that group of players in the under-21s, and they'll all speak very, very highly of him. And they don't have to. Once they've left under-21s, they don't have to say anything nice about him at all. And that's the Gibbs Whites, the Gordons, all of them. They've all come out and said what a great player he is. So a very long answer to the question is, yes, I watched England. Was it a fantastic performance? No. Was it a job well done? Yes. Could they have scored more? Yes. Should they have scored more? Yes. Will they win the World Cup? Well, it's 2 years to go for that. But we're talking about England playing Republic of Ireland because Scotland are in the Group A because of past overachieving. England underachieved to get into Group B. And that for me should never happen. That was down to attitude or the manager letting the players pick the team. And he kept with the same ones. You know, we've had the same thing with Calvin Phillips and Harry Maguire and stuff like that, and how even when they weren't playing well, they were getting picked. And that causes frustration. If you're playing 8 or 9 out of 10 every week for your club, and then you get picked because you feel like the press have picked you, not the manager's picked you, it can cause disharmony in the England camp. But for me, the team he put out yesterday, he's picked people on merit. And a clean sheet and a away win. So what more can you ask for?
Yep. Okay. Halfway through the show, we'll have a quick ad break. We will be back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to our NUFC Matters fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. All excursions included, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges, a 2-crew driver and courier. It's a local family company. and you can find them at www.unitedgrouptravel.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you want to help support the channel, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video. That's the like button. It does help us grow. And click the share button. Help share to your social media. If you want to join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month, then hit the join button under this video today. We also help the food bank on this channel. Visit nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. It takes you to the matchday bucket where you can donate some money virtually. Some events for your diary in aid of Dementia Matters. The Long Sands will be reforming and be supported by Lilac Lane and the Chris Norris Band at the Cluny in Newcastle on Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. Tickets are £15 pre-sale from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 10th of January 2025. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com or from Woucher. And an evening with the Entertainers takes place on the 24th of January 2025. Telephone the box office 0844 249 1000 or visit the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And the Magpie Lounge at Gateshead Leisure Centre is now open. 7 talk-ins for £99. Joe Allen will be hosting talk-ins with Lee Clark, John Anderson, Steve Howie, Darren Peacock, Supermac, Steve Watson, John Beresford, all between the dates of January and July. £99 for 7 talk-ins, newcastlelegends.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to our NUFC Matters fanzine, £20 for 4 issues with all proceeds going to Dementia Matters. If you live overseas, it is £50 for 4 issues. To order now, go to newcastlelegends.com. And a big thanks to everybody who has subscribed to the fanzine. We're up to 81 subscribers now, a bit of a jump over the weekend. And a big thanks to Tom in America, who's paid for 2 subscriptions for 2 people who have already gifted them too. So thanks for that, Tom. Much appreciated. So 81, we are still a way off what we want to hit, which is 200. So if you can spare 20 quid this week, do it. The fanzine is away with the designer, Rob Maltman. Big shout out to Rob. And then it'll be away to the printers. So we'll be posted out in October. And issue 1 will be a collector's issue. So make sure you get your copy, 20 quid, newcastlelegends.com. Okay, a question that's just come in from Lee. He said, are Stu and Mitch concerned with the amount of players that are out of contract at the end of the season? I mean, this has been a build-up, hasn't it, Mitch, for the last couple of seasons. We've seen it coming, if you like, and obviously personnel going out over the course of the last couple of years, mainly on loan, means that a lot of these players are still on our books. But yeah, it's going to be a blessing with some, but it's going to be maybe it's a bit of concern with others.
Well, again, it comes down to what hinders us in PSR, or part of what does, or a lack of actual physical sales in terms of cash money. And so when people are leaving at the end of contracts, we're not getting any money for that. But we do need some wiggle room on wages, and so some going will not be a bad thing.
There's a list there for you, Mitch.
Grace, I didn't realise it was that many, which is okay. So the 3 keepers you can kind of yeah, okay. So there's some decisions to be made there. Decisions to be made on direction long term, and you would think if the club had a proper long term strategy, some of those, one of the remits of this summer may have been to get something for some of those names on that list. In terms of there's book value there that could have added to the PSR calculation, or is the plan to run everybody that he wants to keep until the end of the contract and then worry about it then? I don't know. But you know, I don't think it's concerning, but I suspect Mitchell's got a bigger job than he realised he was walking into.
Thoughts on those names there, Stu? Anybody who you'd probably think will get tied down? I've got an inkling if Eddie's still here that Byrne would get an extension. I think Longstaff as well. You know, he loves those two players. I think we know that Wilson's probably coming at the end of his time on Tyneside, as long as Newcastle can get another forward in. But you know, the keepers, you know, I'm not too sure about them. But yeah, I mean that's an interesting list.
I think it's imperative that we keep Gillespie and Ruddy because they're really good behind the scenes and they organise parties and they're good for morale. So those two are essential. No, but good.
You kept a straight face there. You kept a straight face. I can hear viewers throwing things at their laptops now.
Like, what's he talking about? No, it's good through that list. I'm quite certain Longstaff will get another contract, and for me, he deserves it. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but what he is committed. And he played probably too many games last season. And Newcastle at full strength, he's not going to play many this season. But we never be able to play our start 11 every game of every week for the season. So for me, he'll get a contract extension. Personally, I would give, and this may be controversial, I'd give Wilson a token extension just by 1 year. For the simple reason is we can get a fee for him by doing that. Gives him a bit of security, it makes him feel a bit more wanted and loved, and we'll get more out of him this season as and when he returns from injury. And then we can always accept a bid for England International for around 15 million quid because he's under contract rather than let him go somewhere for free to Saudi, I would presume. Dan Byrne, I'm sure he'll get a contract extension. But you have to understand some of these players were... Some of them, not all of them, are on big wages. And if you extend someone's contract, then they don't want to take a drop in wages. And we know that Kieran Clark, in his time with us, as committed as he was, he signed 3 new contracts, each one of them lower than the one previous. But he wanted to stay at Newcastle, I think, and I won't speak on his behalf, but what I do know is that he's seen it as a privilege to play for Newcastle. But we still want players like that, but with more end product than than just commitment. And if we go back to that promotion season and stuff like that, I thought Kieran was brilliant. But for me, Longstaff, Byrne and Wilson, give them extensions because the sellable assets. We're not in a position to let people go for free that are in and around the first team. The keepers, the two, especially the last two, it makes no difference because they'll never get near their first team anyway. Unless it's just a rubber game, you know, which hopefully we won't have. You know, every game should be competitive next season. So the fact that we're in Europe, even if it's in the Europa League and we're playing the worst team in Albania, we still need to have the winning mentality. So those two keepers will probably never get near the first team if we sign Trafford. Well, I missed that bit there when you just mentioned something, but it's all right. I know that feeling very well. But the players out of contracts isn't as concerning as the players that will want to leave, and that's why I still think the 2 words I used last week was opportunity lost, or lost opportunity with this window, and we really are riding our luck on. Hopefully, the injuries aren't as bad. The players' individual form, I know. I seen it mentioned earlier that Gordon had his best game this season, considering it was his 4th, and he's never completed 90 minutes yet. He's going to get better. He's a very, very talented young man, and he has a mindset where he wants to keep improving. And we probably brought him back earlier than he should have got. Remember, he only had about 10 days break before he was back into training, and he didn't have a break the summer before either. So they have to manage his minutes carefully. But he will get back up to his optimum level, as others will. And it's not just Newcastle. There's other teams in the league that have got players in the same positions, not as in left wing, but in the same fitness positions. But that's my main concern. Not those who are out of contract, because that'll fix itself. If Dan Byrne keeps playing, he's committed. I understand you'd want someone like that behind the scenes. Sean Longstaff, for me, is a squad player who has played well this season, but I don't think he'd be in many people's starting 11, but he's a very good replacement for an injury, for a suspension, for a run of 3, 4, 5 games. But to get into the Champions League, I wouldn't have him in the starting 11 every single week, but I'd certainly retain him. And the same with Dan Burn. You need that, especially if the type of players we're looking to bring in, it gives them what it means to the area. But they're not mascots like what Gillespie and I was going to say Shola, but I don't want to call him mascot 2 weeks in a row. Gillespie and what Paul Dummett were. Like we're from Newcastle, this is what it means. These players are at a high level, and they'll make whoever's replacing them, make them aware of what it means to wear that shirt. And I'm ready to take your place where they were already ahead of the other ones, if that makes sense. So yeah. I would keep them, and the rest will depend on how they perform. The 2 goalkeepers go. Wilson, give him an extension for 1 year with the sole aim of selling them and getting money in for him, because that's how tight PSR is. Even if we've got 10 million from him, it's better than letting him go for nothing. Burn and Longstaff I'd retain. The 3 keepers, let them go, because we will get another keeper in anyway.
Yeah, okay, good point. Lots of people over the last few weeks asking about the new stadium. I mean, thanks to Caretaker, by the way, for becoming a YouTube member. Lots of people asking about the new stadium. I mean, there's no answers. There's no answers to this yet. We still don't know. Peter Guy saying, anyone heard anything regarding the stadium feasibility report? It was imminent weeks ago.
They were stupid to make that comment public.
Yeah.
Really, they were, because that gets everybody's using the word like imminent.
Yeah.
Even if they've already had it, if it wasn't going to then be an openly public conversation, still shouldn't have said it. Exactly. Keep it under wraps. I do know there's been contact from some of the architects back and forth with a couple of businesses in and around the area. But exactly what about, I'm not sure. But it does seem to be tied in with potential stadium plans and feasibility studies, etc. But I don't think we're going to hear anything publicly very quickly at all.
Yeah, I would agree, Stu. I can't see this, being a big announcement anytime soon.
I wouldn't know, Steve. It's one of those that I could just drop tomorrow morning, or it might be next year.
Yeah.
But there's one thing for certain, it's going to happen. The time of it, for me, it's similar to the takeover. How many days and weeks and months was that imminent?
You can't predict it, can you?
No, so it was going to be announced and then it dropped very quickly over that weekend, which, strange enough, I was flying to Tenerife that weekend as well. And thanks to Mr. Patterson, he kept me up to date with the fact that it was done 3 days before it was officially announced. So I think it's quite clear now that the general consensus amongst fans is there's an acceptance of a new stadium and the reasons for it. On the proviso, it's still in the city centre. It's Leazes Park seems to be the place to go. The fact that Leazes Park's has been downgraded for certain things, there's no money there to make it better, and we've got the money. There's a hard work done behind the scenes that have been made public, that Amanda had done regarding the school dinners and stuff like that. There's so much goodwill for this, for what's happening, that I think it's inevitable that the new stadium will be announced. But when, I'd love to give the answer. I'd love to be able to go to the bookies and put a bit on when that's going to be announced, but it will be. And I'm just hoping, beyond hope, it is sooner rather than later. And this is why a man who seems to have escaped a lot of flack through the summer is Peter Silverstone. Because if he had been bringing more sponsorship in, there was more money to spend, and we could have been a lot more freer in the transfer market. But twofold, maybe he's holding his powder for when the stadium is announced, and also the ultimate with the Man City and what you can get for sponsors, because we've discussed it earlier on earlier shows. He could go and get a deal now, and I'll keep using Aramco because that's the easy one to use. And okay, sponsor this stadium for 10 million a season, because that would be fair market value, because the Emirates is 20 million a season or whatever. But then you tied in on 3, 4, 5 year contract at 10 million. And then in 5 years' time, they could have a new stadium that they could be getting 50 million a season for it. So it's something that we have to be something that we're all guilty of not being, and that's patient. But the fact that the chairman's flew over personally to go to the game, to speak to those involved, to hold an inquest to find out why it's happened, who was not to blame, but he might actually went there and say, why did it happen? How can I help you better? How can I support you more? But that doesn't suit the narrative of wanting to criticise. You know, the behind the scenes have done so much over the last 2 or 3 years. It shouldn't give them a free pass, because questions do need to be asked. But at the same time, there has to be a certain level of balanced gratitude with it as well. And yes, it was a huge effort what's happened this summer, in my personal opinion, regarding the lack of first team starters coming into the squad. And we might just get away with it. But we're all programmed and seasoned Newcastle fans where if something can go wrong, it probably will. And that goes back to the Stockholm syndrome that Mitch talked about 3 or 4 years ago, and it gets talked about at least once a month. We're in a strong position off the field that will only get stronger, and on the field will only get stronger. But a lot hangs in the balance of what we achieved this season. And that's why Eddie Howe's frustrated. That's answered about 3 questions in one.
Yeah, it certainly has. Okay, I'll try and get through a couple of more questions. Chris Jagger, I promised you I would come back to yours. Boys, I know it's a Newcastle show, but I'm curious about your take on the Todd Bowley and Clearlake situation at Chelsea. Is this another PS? I know. Is this another PSR play? I mean, Mitch.
No, I think it's a genuine falling out, and I think there's a genuine civil war going on there.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think they've fallen out over a number of different things, and I think it's mainly regarding the football side. That it's all very good being clever and with PSR, but we're not in the Champions League, and we're not doing this, and we're not doing that. And where's the results? Whereas I think Bowley is more for the longer term play with it, whereas I clearly want results.
Okay.
Americans can be exceptionally impatient about wanting results, and so that's my
and unrealistic.
Yes, and so I genuinely believe that is a civil war in the brew. And watch this space. And it wouldn't surprise me that if, again, everybody's what Chelsea are doing and seem to be quote unquote getting away with, there's still an investigation to be had with them over a PSR breach that they have pinned 100% on Roman Abramovich. The nasty Russian man's to blame for this one. Don't blame us. We're just the innocent victims in this when we bought the club and there's a PSR breach from before. There's all sorts going on around that. The agent that took Tussin to Chelsea, who's over here, he's getting ready to sue Chelsea at the moment because of things and allegations that the former... the Russian assistant of Abramovich, who was one of the executives that was involved in all the transfers, she's she's pissed a lot of agents off, and one of them's getting ready to sue Chelsea about it. It wouldn't surprise me for Clearlake to have up their sleeve if there's a further PSR investigation. Well, it was Todd Bowley's fault, and we bought him out and we got rid of him.
What's your thoughts on this, Stu? I mean, it's every week we seem to be talking about something that's going on at Chelsea.
Well, I think Bowley was either ill-informed or naive when he walked through the door. You know, there was the rumours that he thought that they automatically qualified for the Champions League. How true that was, I don't know. But there seems to be a lot of substance to it. He's learning the job. Strangely, I can see his long-term plan of getting as much quality as you can and then getting the manager to sift out the wheat from the shaft, so to speak. But I still don't understand why they sacked the manager in the summer, but that's their issue, not ours. Because they'll just have to repeat, and then the new manager will complain he doesn't have the money, and then he wants his own players, and that'll never ever fix itself. So you do need some continuity, and that's what we did at Newcastle with Eddie Howe. And I know there's a lot of stories going on that Howe's hands been forced, or they're trying to force him out and get Pochettino in, etc., etc. I don't think they would risk such a PR backfire than getting rid of, because we already get a bad press, especially from the Northwest and London, of how entitled that we are, even though we've won nothing for years and years and years. To say, oh, well, he's done better than you than most managers have in your lifetime, and you're getting rid of him, because we're not allowed to be ambitious, you see. We're only Newcastle. But going back to Chelsea, clearly, and I'm surprised Newcastle haven't been involved, because Clear has a 5% stake. The PF have a 5% stake in Clear Lake. And if anyone says we're pulling their strings, 5% is not going to make that much difference to a hedge fund that size. But the reason that I know it's 5%, because that's the maximum you can have in a hedge fund. So if anyone says they own more than that and they're pulling the strings at Chelsea, then they're talking out the backside. So they clearly obviously see the potential in it and blame Bowley for errors. He's learning on the job, and maybe he feels that he's got a handle on things now, and whether he can raise the funds to buy them out or they'll just buy him out, I don't know. But when we talk about our soap opera, theirs is far more inglorious than ours, and long may that continue, because what we should have been doing this once this window had closed is welcoming 2-3 potential superstars into our first team and watching us progress. That's what we all wished for, and I'm sure that's what they wanted. But getting held to ransom by a spiv and allowing us to be held to ransom by a spiv shows naivety on our behalf. Let Chelsea keep making the mistakes, and hopefully Man United join them, and it gives us more grounds to grow, because that's my only concern. Although I'm up to date with affairs on other teams, my sole concern is for the betterment of Newcastle United. So when I see teams like Chelsea struggling, then it makes me happy.
Okay, good questions coming in. Let's get a couple of others. I'll just read this from Steve, by the way. He says, new stadium, timeline, concept design, several iterations done, 16 weeks, schematic design, 26 weeks, detailed design, 52 weeks, tender period, 5 months, 2 years before construction starts. And that's a bit of inside knowledge from Steve there. But good points well made, Steve. And yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day, and a new stadium certainly won't be either. So interesting stuff. Okay, next.
Sorry, Steve, just to interrupt. Do you think, more of a question for Mitch, do you think it was accused against us of government interference? Do you think this is the case with Chelsea? Because they're still holding up this 2.5 billion on there, and all Chelsea is saying, well, you've got it, spend it, and if there's a problem, then we'll expose any agreement that you've got. And that's why they seem to coin Mitch's phrase, they're spending money carelessly, like it's going out of fashion, and they don't give a toss what happens, because they're not scared of being punished. And possibly there is a government interference, but that's me creating a conspiracy, which I try to stay clear.
Nobody really knows where that 2 billion is. It seems to be in an account, however, that still has some degree of control under Roman Abramovich, which is not what it was supposed to do.
No.
And the phrase, like many things in and around football at the minute, when you look at legalities, the phrasing of what the money was to be used for was quote unquote victims of the war in Ukraine, but it wasn't made clear whether that could be spent on Russians as well as Ukrainians, or indeed it could all be spent on Russians, depending on who has control of the funds. Whether some of that money ends up back in the pot at Chelsea, well, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. Or clearly hoping that there's a way back for Roman Abramovich and they could do something with him. You just, honestly, it's so complicated, you never really know which way it's going to jump. I'm glad it's not us. And like I said on Friday, I think what they've done with their squad for the European competition, because it's not the Champions League, I think is a disrespectful to the competition. And I really hope it all comes home to roost and backfires on them.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see what happens with them. And of course, Man City, another week goes by without any news on that score. Led to believe possibly October, that was a date that was mentioned, a month that was mentioned, but the can's been kicked down the road that long. We'll just have to wait and see. But that is going to be, a big turning point for everybody, I'm sure, when that comes out. Chippers, who is imminent return from the toilet, says, "Get that Louise lass down asking the questions if she's got the bottle." Good point, that, Chippers, actually. What else are we going to say? Ian, Tube Trader, often complains I don't ask these questions. It's because this is a good one and it doesn't involve Mitch's dad. Question for Mitch, Stephen Stew. Do you think that when Neville said that we are holding Newcastle back, he was referring to his employers at Sky as well as the EPL? I mean, it's interesting because obviously he gets employed by Sky, doesn't he?
I think it's a direct jab at PSR.
Definitely.
It's simple as that. And the football administration. I don't think Sky really. Sky's interest in football is all about making money for Sky and getting as many of the matches that people want to watch broadcasted. They control football in a very different way because pretty much what they say goes when it comes to sorting things out in terms of fixtures, and when they want to move a fixture, everybody just seems to say yes and damn the fans. But I think Neville's comments are just plain and wholly an absolute attack on PSR and the way it runs at the moment. I genuinely think it needs an entire revisit. For me, the only way you're going to get some sort of fairness would be a salary cap with a spending cap for everyone. And then outside of that salary cap and spending cap, the owners can do what the hell they want with their own money.
Mm-hmm. It's never going to happen, is it?
But it's never going to happen. No.
Where's the incentive?
It works in American sport because of the setup of American sport and the way they introduce new players through drafts and things like that. In football, it's not going to happen.
No, definitely not. There you go, Ian. There's a question answered for you. Mark E says, are commercial deals harder to get when we finished outside of the Champions League, Mitch?
Big ones are, I would imagine. You can charge more when you're a premium product, and if you're not in the Champions League, you're not a premium product. And so far more people will be interested in sponsoring Champions League teams than they would be in just the Premiership. However, the Premiership compared to, say, the Bundesliga, Liga, and even La Liga, is way ahead. So we're way ahead on that. However, when it comes to other deals related to all these various partnerships that Man U have, which I still don't know why we're not investing in. I'd quite happily have a tractor partner and a bloody Zimmer frame partner, and you name it. Let's just have it. But they're easier to sell when you're selling it on the back of, we've got Champions League as well.
Yeah, Stu, Mitch is right, isn't he, really?
Yeah, of course. The sponsorship it's not difficult because the Premier League is the most attractive league in the world for a sponsorship. To be associated with it, it's got a global audience, but getting a sponsor would be the easy part. Getting the right value for that sponsor is the most difficult part. And again, it ties back to this Man City versus the Premier League. What happens if we go ahead and say, right, we'll announce these, and then we could have got 3 times, 4 times, we'll be called inept. Remember, the next financial year ends June the 30th. I think it's a day that everyone's going to remember now after what happened in the summer. So we've got between now and then to bring new things in. And I think, is it going to be as late as November that the Man City case will be decided or announced what happened with it? And I still expect a flurry of announcements from the club regarding the stadium. And for those that said they won't build until after the Euros because we're a Euro place, I agree we can't build a stadium in that time, not the one worthy of what the Saudis will have planned, but the plans that we've seen, and I think one of the ones which have everything else where they build onto the back of the leases. And I know Steve Hasty was privy to this initially, where they can build 3/4 off the stadium and keep St. James's intact. That 3/4 of the stadium would then still give us 50,000, turn around the leases end, close that down, and then start building slowly to make it to complete the fourth side or complete the oval, or whichever way they decide to build it. They can have that behind St. James's Park whilst the Euros are going on in 2028. And I don't think we'll have to wait till 2028 before there's an announcement. I know we don't know when it'll be.
No.
We'll have to wait till that long before they say, right, we'll build a new stadium. But the most positive bit of news I got out of the last week was, football-wise, Newcastle United related, was the fact that the chairman flew over, shows that he cares, shows that he wants answers, and it shows that he's committed. And we're not just a fanciful project for him. It's something that it's an investment that they've invested heavily in, and they understand they'll play the long game, because as long as Newcastle United are at the higher end of the Premier League, they're getting the exposure. And I think a rational fan, as frustrated as we can be at times, will understand that in certain aspects our hands are tied, and certain people will be held accountable. That's why we keep saying they get their best people that they believe for that job, and if they don't perform, they'll get other people who think can do a better job. That goes on behind the scenes, and I'll repeat this until my last days. Our job is to either go to the ground if you're lucky enough to be able to go there, or to watch on TV, or whether you're sitting in a bar, whether you're talking to a friend, whether you're at work, is speak about Newcastle United with pride and defend them till you die in breath. And that's our job as fans. That's what we do. You know, even when we were bad, really bad, but can anyone see in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years we'll ever be uttering the words we're going to get relegated this season, or worrying that our best players are going to get taken by other clubs because we've got no ambition? We have all the ambition in the world. What we're trying to do at the moment is swim with our hands tied behind our backs. But once that rope gets cut free, trust us, we'll have motors on our feet when we're in that swimming pool, and we'll go past everyone very quickly. That's what we all want. That's what they want. But I will repeat it again and again and again. The Saudis will play it by the book. They will do everything right, and that annoys the sports watching crowd, because they expect them to be nasty. They expect them to bully their way to the top, and they're doing everything meticulously, and they're abiding by the rules. Whether they agree with them or not, I'm sure they don't, but they will play by the rules. Let Man City get the rules changed. Let Leicester get the rules changed. Let Everton, Forest, Villa, let these get the rules changed, because when the rules get changed, they won't be the only team to benefit. But we all know they were brought in especially just for us, some of them. But wouldn't it make it even more sweeter? We didn't just go out and spend $500 million each transfer window and we won the League Cup. I'd rather do it the way we've done it, where we've grown organically, but faster organically, than having a 5-year, 10-year project. And I know there was a discussion on the Amigos about 5-year projects. There's another one. We'll start another one next year. We'll have another one in 3 or 4 years' time. This is why I said pause earlier on. We're 3 years into a project where we're hoping after 5 years we'll be in a position to compete regular for trophies and at the top end of the table. I still believe that will be the case. What Paul Mitchell's talking about is he wants 5 years to make sure that's sustainable, and the longevity is there with it. So you can get the two mixed up quite easily. But I've got no doubt in my mind that we will have a new stadium. I've got no doubt in my mind that we'll have a team that will be competing at the very, very top. But you also, going back to something about Gary Neville, we all know where his football persuasion lies, and if Man United are struggling, he'll find a reason to complain about it. But they've spent more than most over the last decade, well, probably the last 30 years, but the last decade since Fergie left. And look where it's got them. I don't want to be like them, throwing money, good money after bad. I want to be like how we're doing it. I just wanted 2 more signings in this summer. And Gary Neville's questioning it, and you have to take it with a pinch of salt, because of he favours Man United, but what he says is right, that it does need to be challenged, it does need to be changed, and people shouldn't be limited to spend. And I've seen someone else quote this week that maybe put an escrow account. That's something I mentioned 2 years ago. Put an escrow account in and say, right, there's money. If we do a bunk as owners, there's money to keep this club running for 1 or 2 years at this current rate. We don't get that money back if we decide to leave. There's many things that can be done. But when people get annoyed about the favouritism that Liverpool and Arsenal and Man United, especially Liverpool and Man United, get shown on Sky Sports, you have to understand their fan base worldwide is a lot bigger than ours. And we only look at Newcastle United. Sky Sports have to look at the whole country and where they're going to get the most views from, where they're going to get the most interactions from. And that's the ones with a bigger fan base. And we're not anywhere near the size of them. And even look at Man City, 10 years of success, Chelsea, 20 years of success. They're nowhere near the global fan base of those two teams. But we can get there before Chelsea can, because I think we'll have the average match-going fan, whether he's in Bolivia, Brazil, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, Alaska, they'll like our story. It's not a manufactured club. It's a club built on history that has seen the bad times. It's like a Hollywood movie, to be fair. And once we get that momentum going properly and win that first trophy, I think we can become an unstoppable force. But to become as big as Liverpool and Man United, that's going to take probably a generation at least. What we need to be aiming for is getting above the Chelseas and Man Cities globally, then challenging the Arsenals, and then challenging the Liverpool and Man Uniteds. And I think our owners understand that, and they're prepared to wait. They don't just invest in something to get instant returns. Remember, the reason that they're investing is initially for 2030 and beyond. So when they bought us in 2021, they're not even expecting returns until 2030. That was a 9-year minimum plan before they started getting benefit of being owners of this club. They're willing to fund it until then. Does anyone think in the next 6 years, trophy? I genuinely believe we will. Yes, I want it now. Yes, we want to win the league next year, etc., etc. But these decisions are taken out of our owners' hands, taken out ours as fans' hands, and let other teams challenge it. Because it will get overturned if it gets challenged correctly, and we will benefit more than most.
Okay, only got about 8 minutes left. I doubt we'll get through 2 questions, but we'll give it a go. Big thank you as well. 500 of you watching on Twitter, 527 watching on YouTube. It means there's over 1,000 watching on a Sunday night when there's no Newcastle match. So thank you. Don't take it for granted. If you are watching on Twitter, jump onto YouTube, please, and hit the subscribe button. NUFC Matters is what you need to search for. Okay, Darren asks a simple question. He says, I'd just like to say hello to the lads and a fantastic show. Can I ask the lads, where do you think Newcastle will be at the end of October? I don't think we're going to be in in any more of a different place. I still think we'll be in the top 4 or 5, and I still think we'll be in the Carabao Cup. Darren, what about you, Mitch?
In the Premier League and through the next round of the Carabao Cup, that's pretty much all I can say. I think we've got some interesting games coming up. More of a test. But I look at the City fixture in particular and think they really haven't hit the ground running in the same way. They'll have players coming back in, I would imagine, by then, that sure as hell they'll put their best players in for playing us. But it's a good test. We're getting better too, or would hope we're getting better by then. So I think just sit tight and keep the faith. I think really, yes, we've rode our luck to be where we are a little bit, but I believe you make your own luck. You know, there's a Gary player who says it's funny, the harder I practice, the luckier I get. And I think that in sport in particular, the hard work does pay off, and you cannot say that we don't work hard. You've seen that. And that's when, if that keeps going, sprinkle some of the quality back in, sprinkle some life back into Bruno, because he's looked knackered for me. But at the end of every game he's played, he's looked like he was running on fumes. So, there's things like that have got to come together for us. Like you, Steve, I'm pretty confident we'll be in and around top 6 come the end of October and through the next round of the Carabao Cup.
Same question to you, Stu. Where do you think we'll be at the end of October?
I don't know if it was my internet or Mitch's, but I didn't get half of that, so it's quite.
Where will we be at the end of October?
By the end of October, we'll be preparing for Halloween. So that's at the end of October. But where we'll be, I think we'll be consolidating ourselves at the top end of the Premier League. We'll be in the next round of the Carabao Cup. Hopefully, we're injury free, and the world will look a better place. And there'll be another international break in between there as well. There's not many games between now and the end of October. I don't know if you can still hear us.
Yeah. We're just listening to you. We're listening to you, Stu.
Yeah, you can, right? So there's not that many games in between. Right, okay, so we get a good result against Wolves at the weekend. That'll take us into great stead. Then we've got Everton, Man City, we've got Brighton, all in the next few games. There's potential there to pick up a lot of points, and trust me, Man City won't like coming to St James. They know they're going to get a game. And the greatest respect we can have is that Guardiola, whether he's got a European game the week before, the week after, he plays strongest team against us. So it's not, for me, that's respect. That shows off where we are. And even if we were to lose that game, we'll go down fighting. And that's all we ask for from this team. And the team will get better. But come the end of October, I honestly think we'll still be in the European places and a lot more confident. Players will be fitter. There'll be players returning from injury. And hopefully no one gets injured. That's the thing that keeps in the back of my mind, injuries to key players. If we can avoid that, I still think we'll finish in the Champions League.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button on NUFC Matters on YouTube. If you haven't already, I'm back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock with the Fans Forum. That's all from me, Mitch and Stu. Take care. See you, lads.
Cheers, everyone.